Hello. Today, I would like to talk about belonging. And this kind of ties back into my previous video on authenticity, yet I have some different stories and insights I would like to share with you. So, first I'd share a personal anecdote on belonging. I've always kind of felt like an outsider. I've always kind of been different too. And I guess that could be a certain group I could associate myself with. Yet, it's always been strange. I've always gotten along with many of these groups, many of these cliques and stuff as I got older. I got along with everybody. I went to a lot of parties. I was always invited to places. And these people, they would treat me differently. And I could see that, like, depending on who was around and what was going on, I would get interacted with very differently. It still happens. And a strange phenomena I've observed is that through my many side quests with all of these recurring characters and new characters, everybody puts on a face, a show, when it's time for the group to come together and to do things. And I find it very interesting because I've had these crazy connections and conversations and experiences with these people who completely 180 as soon as other people are around. And I find that very interesting. And so I was always kind of doing my own thing. People knew me for that, for kind of just being my own person always. And that was one thing I was always taught, though, is just be yourself. And it's something I gained more insight onto and believed more and more as time went on, and I kind of lost touch with myself and got closer to myself. But it was all kind of a cycle, needed to happen, whatever. But I think it's very interesting. These groups and such. I was asked in high school by someone who I once called a friend. I later got into a few violent altercations with them, but that's a story for a different day. What was I? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, what are you, like a punk or a goth or an emo, or what are you? And I said, I don't know, I'm just me. And I figure that's something that stuck with me because that's part of the reason why we got into it, was this guy's subconscious associations and necessity to categorize. So that's something I'm going to kind of get into here, is less of the personal anecdotes and more of my theories on belonging. Like, people get lonely and stuff, you know. I was asked that once in the kind of around that same time frame, is, yo, are you lonely? And I said, no, I'm not lonely. I was kind of lonely, but rather be in my own company than a place where I'll be forced to be misunderstood if I don't conform. And treated differently as such, you know, because when you're the odd one out, you're gonna get singled out. And that tended to happen. So, evolutionarily, it makes sense, though. You want to belong, you want to be part of a group. If you get outed from the tribe, you're not gonna survive, because we need to share resources, especially with our young and stuff. A human baby can't do shit until they're decently older, right? They're fairly vulnerable and useless. So you need that support, at least from a familial unit, but like they say, it takes a village. And so now, since we all live in cities and the whole global stage has kind of changed with the internet, belonging and fitting in where you are, it's less prevalent of a necessity, because you can just go onto your whatever Discord chat, Reddit group, or whatever YouTube channel, and there's these people who think and talk and believe things exactly like you do. Or you can just, go out to your work group and they're just like you, or certain geological locations, certain social locations, third places, stuff like that, where it's just you fit in, you belong. And so I say there's nothing wrong with belonging, there's nothing wrong with fitting in, but I do say that you have to become aware of all of this, because say you're part of a group, okay? You start off as this individual and you get assimilated into the group. That eventually, whether you like it or not, will become part of your identity. And from your identity, that will shape the feelings you have, the thoughts you have, and the actions you take. And those actions you take will loop back around into your identity complex. And so, I know previously I talked about ego, and I haven't really touched on ego death, but that's a topic for another day. But it's really important to know these things, because from your identity, that will shape all of these things you do, like I just explained. So, say, I see myself as a smoker. It means I'm gonna go smoke. Eventually, that might catch up with my health, but it also has further social implications. Like at a function, I get this one-on-one time outside with the other smokers, and we can converse and we can have our own little time there. And so I think what's more important than anything with all of this is just awareness. And it may seem paradoxical, but you need to take a step back to get a step closer to who you really are, to observe these things. And it's not so much the labels that are important. You're a goth or a prepper or whatever. It's these subconscious associations you have with such groups, even conscious, but the subconscious is just a little more slimy, a little harder to hold on to, because it's subconscious, it hangs out in the background, right? So these factors, I say, have more of a overall impact on your destiny, on what you want to do, on what's really going on. So I encourage all of you to take a step back, meditate or whatever. Take a look at who you think you are and all of the associations with that. And I figure you'll find a lot out about yourself, because this work is necessary if you want to go do your own thing. You can still be part of this group or whatever, but do you want to be at the helm of your own destiny? I don't even know if that's the right word, but I don't care. Do you want to be the captain of your own ship? Look at these sort of associations you have and what they do for you and the traps that they can lay down. Like, I see myself as an artist, and there's a lot of connotations with that. And yet I see myself as so many other things. And so I can be in a group that may not be full of artists. I may be in a, for instance, let's say family group, and say I'm the only artist, I will fill a certain niche in that family group and bring a certain energy, as will all of them. And my question to you is, do you let the energy of the room impact the way you present yourself? Or does the way you present yourself and bring the energy to the room change the room? These are all very important things to think about. Because who are you? And what the fuck are you doing here? What the fuck do you really want? I love it when the wind picks up. Around that same time, I was asked if I was lonely. There was an assignment given. You were to draw a word from a hat. And you had to make a visual piece correlating with that and present it. So I drew, I think, vacation. And I was like, this should be easy enough. One of these guys in my class who had given me a hard time because various reasons, but I just wasn't one of them, right? Later on, we all became buddies too, and that's a very strange phenomena I've observed too, is all these people who I didn't quite get along with. Later on in life, I see them, and they're happy to see me. We get along, we're great friends. Do I talk to them every day? No. But all of that is besides the point. And it's just an interesting thing I've seen. And I think it tells you a lot about how things change. But I've always just been me. So, fuck. You're gonna get that. You're gonna get me. When you come and interact with me, I'm not gonna put on a show for you. Unless I'm feeling entertaining that day. Or something, but it's still authentically me. And so that type of vibe just brings something else. But regardless, one of these guys, to finish my story up here, one of these guys, he goes, "Hey man, you want to trade?" And I said, "Okay, well, whatever. What do you have?" He has solitude. I said, "Yeah, I'll fucking trade." He thinks he got one over on me. And so I gave him vacation. He gave me solitude. And I think there's a funny kind of symbolism in all of that. But fuck, I just plastered random stuff onto the paper, kind of made it look like a face, a little split up. And I go to present and I tell the teacher, "Yeah, this is about the duality of solitude. You know, there's bright colors, dark colors. You can kind of put your own meaning towards all of this," because I just made it very abstract. And I said, yeah, it can kind of just be what it is, you know, there's a variety of experience. And she said, "Wow, this is great. You're gonna do great in literary arts and whatever you try to pursue with the language, because you can see this, most people can't." And I thought that was very interesting, but I still did very good on the assignment, and with minimal effort. So I think about that from time to time. And it was true, from that point of solitude that I was kind of in life in general, and that's why that guy came up and singled me out and said, "This is for you." But it worked out for me, didn't it? And that's just beautiful. I love that. So that is the truth of it, though. From a point of solitude, taking that step back, going back into your own authentic energy, you can choose what you want to see. You can choose what you want to be. And you can still integrate back into these groups. And guess what? I dare to say that instead of it being a bad thing, it's a good thing. Because you get closer to yourself. Yes, there may be turbulence in the group if you start having your own ideas, your own ways of being, but Was it ever that strong of a group if a person simply self-reflecting and choosing themselves can topple the foundations? I like to believe a rebel. It's a very interesting concept. Maybe we'll get into this more later. But I leave you with a slightly different question. What do you think of a rebel? If a rebel is solely opposition to the system, whatever system it may be, they're rebelling against it. But in my opinion, and in my perspective, that rebel being oppositional of a system is still reinforcing the system, because you're giving it legs, you're enforcing its tulpa of a entity, of an idea. You're giving it more roots. It has a devil now. So that's why I think, as always, just be yourself. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. Say you're having a lonely time, or you're having strange occurrences in a group. Be yourself. Do whatever the fuck you want. And fuck them. Fuck them. Because, well, I'm kind of running out of points to talk on here. But I hope you liked this video. I tried to structure it a little bit more, wrote down a few things. I think it's got more of a cohesive vibe. So I didn't really check any of my notes. I just kind of looked at them briefly as I went over this. I'm sure I'm missing things, as I always seem to, but you know, I like to just trust whatever happens, whatever comes out the right way. So my question, another of my questions I will leave you with today, and thought pieces, is: where do you belong? Where do you want to belong? What would you say your key role is in certain groups? What do you bring to the table that cannot be replicated, emulated, or synthesized? That is your spark. And I find it maybe easier to think in a sort of group setting, because then you have contrast. It's easier to say, this is who I am, in context, instead of you take a step back and you go, who am I? And then you feel the existential weight of the absurdity of being, the nihilistic terror of creation. But, you know, who are you in your circles, in your work, in your family, in your friend groups? Say you're out at the bar. Who are you? There's insects in my brain. But, yeah. I love you. Have a wonderful day. And, stay sexy, stay wonderful. Like and subscribe if you so desire. And comment. You know, I love to hear back from what the people got to say. And it's another one from Senor Yo-Yo, signing off. Bitches.